So I think it's about proper time we make an updated list of the best Pokemon to power up in Pokemon Go in 2022. Now I do want to note this is going to be a long video, so be sure to use the timestamps below and skip to sections that you care about, because I am going to be going in depth and I want to make sure I cover everything and I'm not missing out on too many details. So use those timestamps below, they're your friend. We're going to start with best Pokemon to power up as raid attackers. When doing raids, you're going to want to have strong Pokemon to take down the raid bosses. Depending on what raid you're going up against, you're going to want to use a type that's super effective against that raid boss. So we're going to run through all 18 types and the best Pokemon to power up for each different type. Now for each type, we're going to break down the Pokemon into 3 tiers. A tier are going to be the best of the best. Those are the Pokemons you really want to strive to power up. The B tier are going to be other Pokemon that if you have them already powered up for other reasons, or if you don't have any of the top A tier Pokemon, are going to be the second best options to go for. Finally, the future tier are going to be Pokemon to keep an eye out for that in the future, if they come to the game, could potentially take the A tier spots and become the best of the best. So either prep for them through catching Pokemon that get their candy, or just keep an eye out on Niantic's main official channels for when they're coming. I am also going to give a quick spiel before each typing on if that type is actually even useful in raids and worth really investing in. Okay, let's start with the best Pokemon for the Steel type. Steel is a great type for raids because there's a lot of Fairy type raid bosses popping up nowadays, and also Ice and Rock type Pokemon. In the A tier, we are going to have 2 Pokemon, Shadow Metagross and regular Metagross. Specifically running Meteor Mash on this Pokemon, these Pokemon are the best of the best and really what you want to strive for as Steel type raid attackers. By the way, if you don't know, Shadow Pokemon do 20% more damage, but they also have 20% less defense. So in raids, Shadow Pokemon are always going to be better than the regular form because that extra damage always helps out. In the B tier for Steel types, we have Dialga, Excadrill, and Mega Steelix. These Pokemon are great if you already have them powered up, but I wouldn't really focus on them if you're looking for a new Steel type raid attacker. The Mega Steelix is nice though because it does give Mega Boost to other Steel type Pokemon. As far as future Pokemon to keep out for Steel types, for Megas, we have Mega Metagross, Mega Aggron, Mega Scizor, and Mega Lucario. And in terms of other Pokemon, you can keep an eye out for Zacian in the Crown Sword form, Shadow Excadrill, Kartana, Taka, which is another Ultra Beast, and Soul Galileo. Depending on the movesets these Pokemon get, they could potentially take the A tier spot. Okay, let's move on to the Bug type. Bug type is not so useful for raids. Not only are the raid attackers that we're going to go through not very strong compared to other typings, but usually when something is weak to Bug, it's weak to another type that has better raid attackers. As far as the A tier for Bug type raid attackers, we have Pheromosa and Mega Beedrill. These are the top 2 strongest Bug types that I would probably invest in. Not everyone has Pheromosa because it was a GoFest exclusive. In the B tier, we have Shadow Pinsir, Shadow Scizor, and Genesect. These are the only 3 ones I would really invest into as Bug type raid attackers. Everything else is just a little bit underwhelming. Finally, for future Pokemon to keep out for Bug types, we have Mega Heracross, Mega Pinsir, and Mega Scizor. And in terms of non-Megas, we have Volcarona, which you can keep an eye out, which could take, depending on the moveset, a top tier spot as a Bug type raid attacker. Now let's talk about the Dark type. Dark type is a pretty useful type for raids, especially with the common Ghost and Psychic type legendary raid bosses. On top of that, it resists the types it does well against, which helps out in the total damage output of these Pokemon. As far as the A tier for Pokemon, we have Hydreigon with the new Brutal Swing from Community Day, Shadow Weavile, Shadow Tyranitar, and then for Megas, Mega Houndoom, and Mega Gyarados. These are all the best of the best. Those are the Pokemon I would invest in for Dark types. As far as the B tier, we have Darkrai, Yveltal, Shadow Honchkrow, and Mega Absol. These are not as great as those A tier Pokemon, but they're still pretty strong and can be used. Finally, for future Pokemon to keep out for the Dark type raid attackers, Mega Tyranitar, Shadow Hydreigon, Dark Void on Darkrai. If Darkrai ever gets Dark Void, it could take the A tier spot, and Galarian Moltres. Shadow Hydreigon is going to be the strongest of the strongest, so make sure you save some candies if that Pokemon ever drops. Next up, let's go into the Dragon type. Dragon is honestly not that useful as a type for raids because it only does well against other Dragon raid bosses. There are a decent amount of other Dragon raid bosses. Let's go through it anyway because there are some really strong Pokemon in here. The best Dragon types, the A tiers, are going to be Shadow Dragonite, Shadow Salamence, and Mega Latios. These are all safe bets to invest into, and they're extremely strong Dragon type raid attackers. For the B tier, we have a lot of different options. Mega Latias, Rayquaza, Palkia, Garchomp, Salamence, Zekrom, and honestly a lot of other dragons like Reshiram and Kyurem will do well as Dragon type raid attackers. However, if you have the candies and Stardust, invest into those A tier bosses. Finally, for future ones to look out for, a lot of good stuff. For Megas, we have Mega Rayquaza, Mega Garchomp, and Mega Salamence. Those are going to be the top tier Megas there are in the game. And then for non-Megas, we have Shadow Garchomp, Black and White Kyurem, Spatial Rend on Palkia and Palkia's origin form, and then Roar of Time on Dialga and Dialga's origin form. These are all Pokemon to keep an eye out for and save some candies because they could, depending on the moveset, take the A tier slots. Let's move on to the Electric type, which is a very useful type for raids, a lot of flying type raid bosses, and a couple waters in there as well, which you can find use with these Pokemon. As far as the A tiers for Electric, we have Shadow Raikou, Shadow Electivire, Shadow Zapdos, Shadow Magnezone. For Megas, we have Mega Manectric, and then for non-Megas, we have Zekrom and Xurkitree, which is coming out during Sapporo, Japan's GoFest, and is going to be a very strong Electric type raid attacker. Note Xurkitree will be available to all trainers further along in the season of Go. For the B tier, we have Mega Ampharos, Thundurus in the Therian form, Shadow Luxray, Electivire, Raikou, Magnezone, and Zapdos. All good investments, but if you can, focus into those shadow forms because they're just going to be a lot stronger. Finally, future Pokemon to look out for are going to be Zeraora, Regieleki, and Fusion/Bolt Strike Zekrom. That's a legacy move for Zekrom. Moving on to the Fairy type. I think Fairy is a great type for raids. Reason being is Fairy does resist defensively all the types that it does well against, allowing it to have a higher total damage output. The A tier Pokemon are going to be Shadow Gardevoir. That's the only one I'm putting up there because it's just way stronger than all other Fairy type raid attackers. But for the B tier, we have Shadow Granbull, Togekiss, Zacian, Mega Altaria, Gardevoir, and Primarina. All those Pokemon are not bad, but if you can invest in that Shadow Gardevoir, it's just going to be a lot stronger than those other ones. For future Pokemon to look out for Megas are going to be Mega Gardevoir in terms of Megas, and then for regular forms, we have Zacian in the Crowned Sword form. We have Enamorus, which is a Hisuiu Pokemon, could potentially make a dent. Geomancy on Xerneas if it's a great fast move, and Hatterene. I think that's how you say it, I'm not sure. Keep an eye out for those Pokemon. They could make a dent in the Fairy type raid attacking meta. Let's move on to the Fighting type A tier. The only one I'm going to throw up here is going to be Shadow Machamp. This is the best Fighting type raid attacker. If you can, invest all your resources into the Shadow Machamps. As far as the B tier, we have Shadow Hariyama, Lucario, regular Machamp, Conkeldurr, and Mega Lopunny. Mega Lopunny is great. It's the only Fighting type Mega we currently have in game, so it's great to boost your Shadow Machamps, but Shadow Machamp is the one you should be going for. Finally, future Pokemon you should look out for the Fighting type are going to be Mega Lucario, Mega Blaziken, Mega Heracross, and Mega Mewtwo X. Shadow Conkeldurr, Rapid and Single Strike Urshifu, Galarian Zapdos, and Marshadow, which is a mythical Fighting and Ghost type Pokemon. Keep an eye out for those Pokemon and get the candies ready for Shadow Conkeldurr, for example, because that Pokemon I believe will be stronger than Shadow Machamp. Let's move on to the Fire type. Fire type is a averagely useful type for raids. I don't find myself using Fire types too often. Sometimes there's usually a better type. For example, against Steel, that Shadow Machamp is just going to be way stronger, but still a quite useful type. Let's go through the best one. For the A tier, we're going to have Mega Charizard Y, Shadow Entei, Shadow Moltres, Shadow Apex Ho-Oh with Sacred Fire Plus, and Reshiram. But in the B tier, we have Shadow Charizard, Apex Purified Ho-Oh with Sacred Fire Plus, Shadow Typhlosion, Mega Charizard X, and Mega Houndoom. Stick to the A tiers. There's a lot of great options in there, but the B tiers are there in case you have some good IVs of them. Finally, for future Pokemon to keep out for, Mega Blaziken is going to be great and very strong. However, Mega Charizard Y is just so strong, I don't think it'll outclass it. We have Shadow Blaziken and Shadow Emboar, two very strong shadows to keep an eye out for. Blaze Fanlawn, which is an Ultra Beast. Again, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the Ultra Beast wrong. I did not play Gen 7. It was the only generation I did not play. Finally, Fusion Flare / Blue Flare Reshiram. If that ever comes, it'll just make Reshiram even stronger. Let's move on to the Flying type, which although has some very strong Pokemon, is not a very useful type for raids. There's only really like 1 or 2 raid bosses that you'll ever really use this against, and that's going to be Virizion, I believe. But in terms of the best flying types, we have Shadow Moltres and regular Moltres. It's just that strong, but you need Sky Attack on this Pokemon. We then have Mega Pidgeot for the Megas. In terms of shadows, Shadow Ho-Oh, but it needs Hidden Power Flying, so it's very hard to get this Pokemon for a flying raid attacker. Shadow Staraptor, and then Chateau Honchkrow. In terms of the B tier for flying types, regular Ho-Oh, Rayquaza, and Yveltal. In terms of future Pokemon to look out for, we're going to have Mega Rayquaza and Dragon Ascend Rayquaza are the only things that are really going to change the meta. Really, the Moltres and Shadow Moltres are the way to go for flying type raid attackers. Moving on to the Ghost type, which is a pretty useful type for raids, and Ghosts are not that bad. Only issues I find with Ghosts is they usually don't defensively resist types they're good against, making them struggle a little bit as raid attackers. In terms of the A tier for Ghost types, Mega Gengar, Chandelure, and Shadow Mewtwo with Shadow Ball are the ones to go for. On topic of Shadow Mewtwo can be used for almost any type, by the way. Like for example, you could throw it as an Ice type raid attacker with Ice Beam or Electric with Thunderbolt. So Shadow Mewtwo is definitely worth powering up if you have one. In terms of the B tier for Ghost type raid attackers, Giratina Origin Form, Gengar, and Hoopa in both forms. Finally, future Pokemon to look out for Ghost types, Shadow Chandelure and Shadow Gengar are going to be very, very strong. Mega Banette will be strong, but it won't be as good as Mega Gengar. Dragapult, Marshadow, Blaze Fenlon, which I believe we talked about earlier, Poltergeist, and Delmise might be Pokemon to keep an eye out for as Ghost type raid attackers. Let's move on to the Grass type, which is not a very useful type for raids just because of the fact that usually there's a type that is just way stronger than Grass types. But for example, for some raid bosses like Mega Swampert, Grass type could find its play. In terms of the A tier Grass type raid attackers, Mega Venusaur, Shadow Venusaur, Shadow Tangrowth, and Zarude are going to be my A tier listings. In terms of B tier, Shadow Torterra, Shaman in the Sky form, but you need Hidden Power Grass on it, so it's hard to get. Tapu Bulu, Shadow Victory Bell, and Shadow Executor. Finally, future Pokemon to look out for, Mega Sceptile, which I believe will take the #1 spot for Megas. Shadow Sceptile, Shadow Chestnut, Rillaboom, and Kartana are going to be great options to look out for. Let's move on to the Ground types. Now, Ground is a pretty useful type for raids. There are a decent amount of Pokemon, but I think the issue with Ground is that it really just doesn't have anything that does insane amounts of damage and is insanely stronger than the rest. The A tier listing I'm going to put is going to be Garchomp. Reason being is Garchomp will double resist most types that it does well against. For example, Electric. In the B tier, we have Landorus, Therian, Groudon, Shadow Mamoswine, Rhyperior, Excadrill, Landorus Incarnate, and Shadow Swampert. All these Pokemon generally perform similar in terms of ground type raid attackers, but unlike the Garchomp, Garchomp, they do usually only single resist electric since they don't have that dragon type. All in all, any ground type raid attacker is fine to invest in, but let's take a look at the future Pokemon because there's some strong ones. In terms of the best megas in the future, we're gonna have Mega Garchomp, Mega Swampert, and Primal Groudon. Keep an eye out for those Pokemon, gonna be very strong. Other than that though, a lot of great shadows to come. Shadow Excadrill, Shadow Garchomp, and Shadow Rhyperior will vastly increase their damage output as ground type raid attackers, and also Precipice Blades on Groudon will make it even better. Let's move on to the Ice type. Ice is a pretty good type in raids, especially for a raid boss like Rayquaza, which is a fan favorite, being double weak. And there's a lot of raid bosses that are double weak to Ice, making it a great type to have. Definitely would recommend powering up a team of Ice type raid attackers. A tier for Ice type raid attackers is going to be Shadow Mamoswine, the only one you should really be investing in if you have the resources. In the B tier, we have Galarian Darmanitan, Shadow Weavile, Mamoswine, and Mega Abomasnow, but really, if you can get the A tier Shadow Mamoswine, you're gonna be a lot better in the long run. Future Pokemon to look out for, Zen mode on Galarian Darmanitan will actually be better than Shadow Mamoswine, Mega Glalie, which would be the new best Mega, and Black and White Kyurem. Normal type we can completely skip because it does not do super effective damage in raids, meaning it's completely useless. Moving on to Poison type. Now, usually I would say Poison is not that great, but with the recent introduction of a lot of Fairy type Pokemon like the Tapu brothers, Poison has found its spotlight and can definitely be a pretty useful raid boss more than before. The best Poison types in the game are going to be Nihilego and Mega Beedrill. If you miss Nihilego during GoFest, you probably won't be able to get it until it comes back. B tier for Poison types though are going to be Roserade, Toxicroak, Shadow Victreebel, and Shadow Vileplume. In terms of future Pokemon to keep out for Poison types, we have Eternatus and Naganadel, I think is how you say it. Could make a stance as a Poison type raid attacker, but really the Nihilego is the way to go. Now moving on to the Psychic type. I don't really find that much use for it against 5-star raid bosses. It's more of a useful type to take down some 3-star and 1-star raid bosses. It wouldn't really be my first type to power up, but it can be useful in some scenarios, for example, if Zamazenta ever comes back. The best A tier Psychic type raid attackers are going to be Shadow Mewtwo, Regular Mewtwo, both with Psy Strike, which is a legacy move, and Mega Latios. As far as the B tier, we have Mega Latios, Shadow Latios, Hoopa Unbound, Shadow Metagross, and Shadow Alakazam. Finally, future Pokemon to look out for, of course, we have the Mega Mewtwo's, Mega Alakazam, and Mega Gardevoir/Gallades. Other than Megas though, Shadow Rider Calyrex could be pretty good, Galarian Articuno, Solgaleo, Lunala, and Necrozema in both the Dusk Mane and Dawn Wing forms. Depending on when these Pokemon come out, they could make a dent, but I don't really see anything topping Shadow Mewtwo as a Psychic type raid attacker. Moving on to the Rock type, which is honestly, I believe, the #1 type for raids. So many Pokemon weak to Rock and double weak to Rock. Definitely, this would probably be one of the first teams I'd power up. The best Rock types attackers in the game are going to be Shadow Tyranitar, Rampardos, Rhyperior, and Mega Aerodactyl. B tier Rock type raid attackers are going to be Terrakion, Regular Tyranitar, and Shadow Aerodactyl. A lot of strong future Rock type raid attackers which you might want to actually save your candies for, including Mega Tyranitar and Mega Diancie, which is not in the game yet. Shadow Rampardos and Shadow Rhyperior, which will be very, very strong, and Stataka Taka. Finally, the final type, Water type. Water type is a pretty useful type for raids. I kind of compare it to like Fire, which has its uses sometimes, but there usually is another type that you can potentially use. A tier Water type raid attackers are going to be Shadow Swampert, Mega Blastoise, and Mega Gyarados. B tier are going to be Shadow Feraligatr, Kyogre, Shadow Gyarados, and Swampert. As far as future potential Pokemon, of course for the Megas, Mega Swampert, Primal Kyogre, and potentially even Ash Greninja, Shadow Primarina, which will be very strong, Inteleon, and Origin Pulse Kyogre. Keep an eye out for all those Pokemon, collect the candies because they're going to be the best of the best. Now, I do want to note that the best counters for each raid boss are going to vary depending on the moveset that raid boss has and also what the weather is. The moveset will affect your choices because different moves will do different super effective damage to different Pokemon, changing your defensive strategy. The weather will change it because different weather will give weather boosts to different types, making certain types better than others in different weather conditions. I always recommend going to pokebattler.com before doing a raid and searching up the best counters for that Pokemon. Come to the website, click here, time to win. It'll simulate that raid and show you the best raid bosses that'll take that raid boss down the fastest. It'll even show you how many deaths that Pokemon has in the total battle, which is good information to have when deciding your team. This is the best way to build your parties because it allows you to use an actual simulation of the raid and take into consideration actual factors like dodging and your Pokemon's levels. So although my best Pokemon to power up gives you a general idea of the best of the best, it's good to take a look at Pokebattler. Okay, that's my list for the best raid attackers. Let's move on to PvP. I'm gonna run through some of the best Pokemon for each different league that you should be investing in the current meta. I do want to note if you're watching this video further down the line, the meta might have shifted depending on move updates, so take this with a grain of salt. In the Great League, some of the best Pokemon you can invest in right now are going to be Medicham, Galarian Stunfisk, a Purified Sableye with Return, Walrein, Bastiodon, Trevenant, Skarmory, Azumarill, Altaria, Registeel, Umbreon, Shadow Nidoqueen, and regular Nidoqueen, Defense Deoxys, Scrafty, Swampert, Talonflame, Araquanid, Alolan Ninetales, Venusaur, Lickitung, and Shadow Alolan Marowak. In the Ultra League, some of the best picks are going to be Walrein, Talonflame, Swampert, Registeel, Cresselia, Trevenant, Giratina Altered Form, Scrafty, Tapu Fini, Escavalier, Obstagoon, Nidoqueen, Alolan Muck, Jellicent, Umbreon, Umbreon, and Defense Deoxys. Finally, in the Master League, Dialga, Melmetal, Giratina Origin Form, Groudon, Togekiss, Mewtwo, Kyogre, Dragonite, Metagross, Lugia, Zekrom, Garchomp, Excadrill, Snorlax, Zacian, and Swampert. All those Pokemon are generally safe investments which can be used on a lot of different teams for each of those leagues. However, if you do want to get a better look at different Pokemon to use, you can come to PVPOKE/rankings, and PVPOKE does an amazing job of ranking the overall best Pokemon for each different league. And note, these are overall rankings, so not all these Pokemon will do well in the lead as a safe swap or as a closer. If you don't know what a lead, by the way, a safe swap and a closer is, a lead is the first Pokemon you throw out. A safe swap is a Pokemon you want to swap into if you lose your lead, generally has neutral matchups with a lot of the meta, and a closer is a Pokemon you want to bring in once shields are down that can do a lot of damage very quickly and sweep the end game. PVPOKE has an amazing different assortment of lead, closures, and switches if you want to check out the best. Right now in the Great League, Walrein is the #1 safe switch. And of course, you can change the league up here if you care about the other leagues. With that being said, that is pretty much the video. That is my ranking of the best Pokemon to power up for each different type in Pokemon Go and for PvP. I like to make these videos every single 6 months, so wait about 6 months and I will get you an updated version with any of the new Pokemon that come out. Comment below if you agree with my list. Comment below if you would mix around different Pokemon and put different ones into A tier, B tier, or recommend powering up different Pokemon for PvP. And have an amazing rest of your day, guys. Follow for tips, everyone. Peace.